I'm Matt Goss and I'm here at the Wellington Barracks opposite the beautiful Buckingham Palace. My day is going to be filled with talking to the veterans and military serving personnel, and it's going to be very interesting for me because I get to hear their perspective on military life and life outside of the military. We also are putting a pen in the map to acknowledge the launch of the new single for the Not Forgotten charity. It's going to be a gorgeous day. Watch this space.
I was in Dad's army in 1941, the Home Guard, and I was learning to speak, learning Morse code for communications. On the 2nd of January 1941, Cardiff got its first blitz. My house was bombed, so I decided to volunteer and give them back what they gave me. So just before my 19th birthday, on the 13th of April, I volunteered for aircrew. I was accepted as a wireless operator. I spent 19 months learning Morse code and communications and flying. And then I was transferred to a 4-engined aircraft, RAF Halifax. And I was stationed at Leaming, Yorkshire. We were adopted, we were a Canadian squadron, and we were adopted by Metro Goldwyn Mayer. So we were called the Lions Squadron. I did up to 18 trips with them, and on the 19th trip to Castle, I got shot down. Actually, our aircraft for that night was L Love, and we tested it. It was okay during the day, and we had our briefing and a flying supper, and then we went to the aircraft. And when we tried to start it up, it wouldn't go. So I got my Aldous lamp out and flashed the flying control that the motor for US. So the commanding officer came over in his car and we explained it, and the flight sergeant, ground crew explained it wouldn't start. So they said it was a spare aircraft, G. George. So we had to carry all our goods. I had 2 pigeons, homing pigeons with me, and I had to carry it all from one aircraft to another, and all the window and everything like that. Anyway, we took off about 5 minutes late. Our rendezvous was Cromer. We took off at 5:30, and our rendezvous was Cromer. We rendezvoused there and got up into sections and flew across the North Sea. As soon as we hit Holland, we were greeted by flak. Anyway, we passed through the flak all right, and on the edge of between France and Germany, and the rear gunner said, "There's a night fighter on our tail." And the mid-upper gunner said, "Yes, I see it also." So we were in the hands of the rear gunner, and he instructed the American captain what to do. He gave we flew into a corkscrew, and they both gave a burst of fire to the night fighter, who broke away and disappeared. We carried on and we reached the target, and as we went over the target, the night fighters flew over us and dropped fighter flares. So it was like flying through a high street with all the lights on. And they allowed us to drop our bombs and followed us out. And as they followed us out, they attacked us. They hit us in the tail. The pilot said, "We've been hit." Asked me to go back and see what was going on. So I went to the mid-upper gunner, hit him on the thigh, and there was no reply. I went back to the rear gunner, but the rear turret was jammed. I looked through the porthole and saw half his head was blown off. So I turned to go back to the pilot to report to him. We were attacked again, and I got hit in the thigh with shrapnel. I got back to the pilot and put my thumbs down to indicate they were dead. When I looked, all our port wing was on fire. The pilot said, "Bail out." So I went down below him where my position was, picked up my parachute and the navigator's. The navigator was right in front of me. He lifted up his table and chair and opened the escape hatch. I handed him his pilot and his parachute, and when I looked, I had his name on mine. So I told him, and wrongly, so we switched him over in a couple of seconds, and I bailed out. I landed in a tree and released my harness, put my feet on a branch, released my harness, put my weight on my legs, and my legs gave way. I fell through the branches and lost consciousness. That was about 9:30 at night. About 7:30 the next morning, as it was getting daylight, I regained consciousness. I looked out and I could see it was dark up above. I was in a forest, in a wood. It was dark up above and light below. So I crawled down to the edge of the wood, and there were a man and two boys spreading manure on the field. I blew my whistle and they came over, and I asked them for some water. They stood me up and let me go, and I collapsed unconscious again. The next thing I remember was going across a field on a horse and cart. I lost consciousness again. Next time I woke up, there was a doctor and a nurse looking over me, and the doctor said, "You have broken your leg." I said, "Where am I?" They said, "Germany." I said, "I can't stay here." I tried to get up and go. And with that, there was a German officer came to the door, and I recognized the uniform, and it dawned on me what had happened. I was sent to a hospital, the Hermann Göring Luftwaffe Lazarett in Frankfurt. Although before that I was in this hospital, in the evening a medical order came to pick me up, to escort me to interrogation at Frankfurt. We had to change trains at various places. On the first place, he left me on the platform while he went to get me a cup of tea. Well, I looked up, there was a giant of a man with a walking stick looking down on me, and he said in perfect English, "My house was bombed last night in Kassel." Discretion being a better part of I decided to say nothing. Anyway, with that, the medical order came back with a couple of ersatz tea. The next station we stopped at, he took me into a canteen, and it was full of German soldiers going to the Eastern Front. One came up to me with a rifle, he wanted to shoot me. The medical order again found a sergeant. The sergeant came over, and the German soldier went off. I thanked the medical orderly and gave him my name and address. We carried on anyway. We got to Frankfurt, and I was taken to a place called Hallmark. It was a medical hospital run by Sisters of Mercy. A mental hospital actually, taken over by the Germans. And I was interrogated there, and there was about 4 others with the same bone broken, and we all had the similar operation of having a metal pin put inside the bone instead of a plaster of Paris. And we were there for 8 months. There was one of the patients was an American mid-upper gunner, and he got rather fed up. He wanted to go out. So there were 2 Canadians with me, and him in the room, and we helped him escape through the bedroom, on a rope. Anyway, the next morning at breakfast time, we had our breakfast, and there was a British warrant officer in charge there, with a German, and he said, "Where's Shrek?" Oh, in his bed, I suppose. He's not in his bed. He's escaped, so it is. They reported his escape. Right, you were in the room with him. You and you. Pack your bags, and we were put down in solitary confinement. We were there for 2 days. While we were in there, they took our boots and braces away. I said to one of the German guards, "Why have they done this?" There had been a landing on the west coast, D-Day. Anyway, we had our operation, had the metal pin put out, and I was sent to Luft 7 in Upper Silesia, a new camp. We were put in huts about 12 feet long, about 10 feet wide, about 10 feet high. There were 6 of us. There were 2 small to put beds, so we had palliasses and blankets. The Russians were building bigger huts, proper place, in the next compound. In September, they moved us to the new compound where we were 12 to a room, 2-tier bunks. In January 45, they told us the Russians were advancing, so we had to move. So they put us on what they called a death march. It was minus 30 degrees centigrade, cold, 2 feet of snow. They marched 150 miles in 17 days without any food. At the end of the 17 days, we were so exhausted, they had to put us in cattle trucks. And for 2 days, they locked us in. We finished the journey to Luckenwalde, South Berlin. Of course, the Russians caught up with us in April 45, and they said we could go east into Germany, into Russia, north into the town, but not west. So I went up into town. I indicated to a Russian soldier I was looking for food. So he looked at the ground, found the first door, knocked at it, and 2 girls answered the door. When they looked, they were really afraid, and one noticed my uniform was slightly different. She said, "You English?" I said, "Yes. Will you stay here and protect us?" There was a settee there where I'd been laying on the floor in Luckenwalde. I said, "Yeah." So each morning I used to get up, go down to the camp. If nothing was happening, I'd come back and stay with them. And if a Russian came, knocked at the door, I'd say, "Englishki Tavares," English comrade. "Ah, Tavares," and they would go off. And I stayed there with them for about 10 days. Then the Americans contacted us, and they informed us that there were trucks down the road. And if we cared to walk down there, they'd fill a truck and get us across the river. So I said goodbye to the girls, picked up my drinking mug, and we took the walk, got into a truck, and I crossed the Elbe on the 8th of May, VE Day. I got into Americans' hands. That was the first good meal we'd had for years. Anyway, I went for a walk into the town, and I was passing a woman, and a child, and the woman was speaking in English to the child. I said, "You English?" She said, "Yes." I didn't get much information from her as to who she was, but she said she would see me the next day. Well, the next morning I was called forward to go in a truck to be transferred. And I was going through the town in a truck. I saw her on the pavement, so I don't know exactly what happened. Anyway, they took me to Hanover. There, I had a night in Hanover, and then by air to Belgium, and where we were medically tested and put me in clean uniform. Then we were put in a train and sent from Belgium into France. Overnight in a prisoner of war train. The next morning we got to Lille, and the aircraft, the Lancasters, were on the runway waiting for us. They flew us south of Guildford. I landed there, and I was interrogated, thoroughly cleaned up, etc. And a new uniform was sent up to a camp where they tested me and found I was suitable to go home on leave, so I went on leave. So that was my story.
Wow, what a story. What a long way home, Harry. What a long way home from that 19th mission being shot down and then all that way home, eventually arriving near Guildford. Incredible.
If you want to see my story or hear my story, get on the computer, 427 Squadron, RCAF, and press enter, and you'll see a line history. Press history, and my story is about the fourth item down.
We shall all go on that, probably on the way home tonight, Harry, when you look at that.
So listen,
She's 10 now.
listen, thank you so much
Yeah.
for your time
It's a
again.
pleasure, nice to meet you, to see you nice.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
Nice to meet you.
Truly.
Yeah.
Inspiration.
And then nice to have met you, Harry.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Got your hands are cold.
So thank you so much for watching. I've had the most beautiful day with these wonderful people. Please keep watching and look out for the next episode.